I usually do not take the opportunity to respond to any of Thunderfoot's rhetoric or dialogue or videos. But after his latest video felt that I would provide my view on what he has been producing lately in his series on Islam. Um, I want to state right up front that I do not agree with radical fundamentalism in regards to Islam. Um, I do not agree with their extremism either, nor do I agree with any of their terrorist acts. That said, my viewpoint is probably going to be a lot different than many atheists on YouTube and their coined phrase that others have called them, which would be militant atheists. Um, I'm a firm believer that I cannot make everybody happy, regardless of the viewpoint or ideologies and beliefs that I have. There is always going to be an opposition to them, um, sometimes more than others. However, this latest video by Thunderfoot really is nothing more than bigotry, in my opinion. I'm going to have some analogies here that may be not understood very well by some, but hope to get the point across as best I can, because this is not scripted. This is just coming as I speak. Um, Thunderfoot has taken the liberty to lump all Muslims together in the same radical category that was the result of 9/11. However, before 9/11, there were numerous terrorist attacks. One could cite the Beirut bombing of the Marine barracks back in the 80s. Um, this is just one example, but we really didn't have the overflowing of the cup, so to speak, until 9/11. What amazes me is Thunderfoot obviously is a opponent to Sharia law and the other dogmatic teachings and beliefs of Islam. I myself categorize myself, label myself a naturalist, um, but many do choose the title of atheism. But what Thunderfoot is doing here is creating a religious war of his own accord. Now, some will say, well, atheists are not religious, which is true, but you're starting a religious war in the sense that you want the internet to become a platform of people to do one of the most blasphemous things that, according to a Muslim, could be, and that would be depicting the Prophet Muhammad or God in an image, whether it's a cartoon, a stick figure, whatever the case may be. Many people do not understand the belief itself, and this is not just strictly tied to Islam. This is a belief that goes back to paganism, that goes back to Judaism. Uh, you know, ancients would not draw or write the word God in their script. We can take the Gnostics as an example. Within the Nag Hammadi text, we can use the tractates, the Gospel of Philip, and the Exegesis on the Soul as examples as what God was illustrated as by descriptions of words. They would call him the immeasurable one. They would call him the inconceivable one. They believed that God was, like the pagans, was unattainable, unknowable, and was unperceivable. I myself do not believe in a creator of the universe, but one must try to put themselves in the shoes of an ancient civilization and belief. The majority of the world at that time was religious in the sense, whether it was paganism or Judaism, or whatever the case may be. Atheists were a very small number in society, um, and they were frowned down upon, but the majority of people believed in the existence. They would look to the heavens and they wouldn't understand what they were seeing. and they would create the constellations and anthropomorphize the constellations into people to try to get a grasp and understanding of what they had no idea of what they were looking up in the nightly sky. But they based their entire lives off of the universe, when to plant crops, when to hold festivities, the spring and vernal, spring or vernal equinox, the winter solstice. It goes on and on and on. And to the Muslims, the same can be said. Their God, Allah, was completely unperceivable and unknowable, unlike the perversion of the Christianity sect, who illustrated Jesus time and time again as to what he may look like. This was a Catholic perversion of the ancient Christian script. The early Christians, just like the Jews and just like the Muslims, would not depict God in any form. He was immeasurable. They had no idea what he looked like. Therefore, they would not draw him. It was viewed as blasphemous. And the same can be said of writing the word God, or Yahweh in this instance. For example, the Jews had rooms called genzias, and in these genzias, within the synagogues and religious centers of teaching, any document, script of any kind that contained the word God in it was kept in these rooms and locked away with a key. The genzias would only be allowed to be viewed by the priestly caste, the high priest, the Levites, for they believed if anyone else, Jew or Gentile, came across these documents, that they would do exactly what Yahweh had commanded them not to do, which was to take the Lord's name in vain. And that is replete within Leviticus, for example. And another thing that I know and understand is these people, Thunderfoot, lump all the Muslims together, but they themselves have probably never picked up the Quran or read the Surah. You know, one of the biggest things that I've never been able to grasp, and one of the double standards within Islam itself and the Prophet Muhammad, is that Muhammad ordered all Arabs, Muslims, to be able to read and recite from memory the Quran, whereas Muhammad himself could not read or write. Talk about a double standard. You yourself are trying to lead by example in a religion, in a new religion. You're commanding others to do what you yourself cannot do. Furthermore, you know, Thunderfoot has taken the liberty to create a pure and true, as what we call in Latin, an argumentum ad hominem. Now, ad hominem today is known as a personal attack, but the core meaning of argumentum ad hominem is that figure B is a convicted felon, yet figure B talks about what not to do to stay out of prison, to stay out of jail. Well, in the Latin ideology of teaching, they would pay no attention to the doctrine that figure B was talking about because he himself was a convict. This is exactly what Thunderfoot is doing with Islam and extremist Islamic factions. Since there are acts of terrorism by Muslims, then he creates a pure argumentum ad hominem by lumping them all together and saying, well, they're all terrorists. It's very high schoolish, it's very immature, and this religious war that's being created on the internet, depicting, you know, God in a cartoon, you view it as a laughing matter, but one must try to place themselves in the shoes of the ancients to try to grasp a better understanding of why they believed what they did, instead of taking a modern approach and viewpoint on it and then distorting the whole belief system and not understanding it. Therefore, you come up with what you did in your latest video. It's nothing more than bigotry.